My name is Kayla Delano, and my presentation is Vice Media's Branding and Core Values, an ideological analysis of brand identity. I conducted an ideological analysis on brand identity, assessing the dominant values and beliefs embedded in the discussion between the small business owners and brand specialists of a clip from Vice Media's Hustle series called Branding and Core Values. This analysis will define and understand the importance of branding and assess the process of establishing and implementing a brand's identity. Branding is an essential piece of establishing a successful business. Brand identity goes beyond what a business looks like to the public, such as their logo and colors, but also addresses who they are and what they stand for. I referenced a HubSpot article by Catherine Wheeler called How to Develop a Unique and Memorable Brand Identity in 2020. She defines brand identity as the personality of your business and promise to your customers. Our text suggests that organizational identity shifts from communication in organizations to communication about organizations, or how a larger society portrays and debates its institution. By these definitions, businesses must truly assess why they went into business and what value they will produce for their customers. In the process of establishing a brand identity, companies are also led to establish a set of core values. To understand thoughts about brand identity, I used 3 questions from the ideological analysis process discussed in Barry Brummett's Techniques in Close Reading. These questions included: what should the audience think or do? What does the text ask the audience to assume? And how does the audience know what the text claims? By answering these 3 questions, we're able to uncover the following. What should the audience think or do answers the questions about the claims and conclusions the text would lead to. For the branding and core values clip, we'll be able to uncover what is said about brand identity. By answering the what does the text ask the audience to assume question, we're able to dive deeper into the text's claims by understanding how the claim would actually work, by understanding underlying assumptions that make the claim work. As we'll uncover later in the presentation, the clip discusses how a brand or branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room. This question prompts us to uncover, do people talk about brands and why they talk about brands? Lastly, asking how does the audience know what the text claims assesses the evidence behind these claims. It could be framed by quotes or information by notable, credible figures or data. The clip's evidence mainly comes from notable figures and professionals in the field. This presentation will discuss 4 areas, 3 helping define brand identity and 1 being brand identity itself. We'll start with branding. The host of the clip, John Henry from Vice Media, begins the clip with a quote about branding from Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos. He states that a brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. The host follows with stating, by this quote, that a company's job is to make sure that they get the message right, provide the right experience, and make sure that it is retainable. This is our first glimpse at ideologies about brands and brand identity. I broke down the findings through Barry Brummett's ideological analysis process, which I continue to use to assess all of the findings in this presentation. Starting with the first question, what should the audience think or do? Jeff Bezos' quote about what people say about a business when they're not in the room suggests that consumers must think about businesses and produce and express their own thoughts about the business's brand. The second question, what does the text ask the audience to assume? By the host, John Henry's quote about brands needing to get the messaging and experience right, and that it needs to be retainable, suggests that the audience knows that messaging and experience defines and differentiates a brand. The last question, how does the audience know what text claims? By using a quote on branding by Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, the evidence provided for the ideology around branding is provided by a notable or credible source. Now we'll discuss brand identity. When Cousins Dozen, the small business that is consulting with the brand specialist in the clip, is asked about why they are different from their competitors, they explain none of them have a personality behind them. You got the dynamic donut duo right here. You got Easy Glaze and you got the donutologist. As referenced earlier, Catherine Wheeler's definition of brand identity being the personality of your business and promise to your customers, the small business owner's ideology on brand identity aligns with the idea that personality is an essential part of a brand identity. We'll start with the first question: what should the audience think or do? In order to break down the ideology shared about brand identity from the clip. The audience should think that a company's personality makes a difference in whose business they will remember or support. What should the text ask the audience to assume? That businesses have personalities and that people behind these businesses provide the personality. How does the audience know what the text claims? Though a credible source or data isn't provided to back up the claim here, the way in which the business owner expresses the personality they have and how it impacts their brand of their business provides weight for the claim. As Cousins Dozens worked through the brand exercise with the brand specialists, the concept of core values were discussed, which I also found as an important factor in establishing a brand identity. The host, John Henry, defines core values as the guiding principle of your business and follows with that it's not what you sell, it's who you are. He then emphasizes the importance of Cousins Dozen establishing their own core values in order to understand who they are so that others can understand them. During the brainstorm, Cousins Dozens comes up with core values like family, love, and godly. So what should the audience think or do about core values? The audience or consumer should focus on the core values of a business above the products it sells. What does the text ask the audience to assume? That a company's core values are actually important to them. How does the audience know what the text claims? Once again, though a notable source or data isn't presented here as evidence, being guided by brand specialists on establishing core values provides credibility. Lastly, we'll look at brand messaging and its importance to brand identity. Messaging like fast, friendly, and fresh came up during the core values exercise by Cousins Dozen during this clip. As this messaging derived from the core values exercise, the brand specialist also considered how the core value of godly could attribute to messaging like generosity and philanthropy about Cousins Dozen's brand. In the beginning of the clip, when Cousins Dozen was asked about how they described their brand, they used the following messaging: hot, fresh, mini donut company that delivers an incredible experience. This led to tweaking this messaging and definition through the branding and core values exercises. Let's break down this final element of brand messaging. What should the audience think or do? That the audience should care about the brand messaging. What does the text ask the audience to assume? That brand messaging is established by the business. Lastly, how does the audience know what the text claims? Once again, the brand specialist's expertise is the evidence provided to support the claim about the importance of brand messaging. Now, based on these findings, we'll uncover how these findings impact individuals, organizations, and society. When looking at how these findings impact individuals, when considering brands and branding, individuals should have something to say about businesses. If individuals do not have something to say, they won't be engaged with the business. When considering brand identity, individuals should be able to connect with the business, particularly by the personality it exudes. If individuals cannot identify with the business's personality, they will not be able to connect with it. When it comes to core values, individuals should connect with the business's core values above connecting with what the business sells. If individuals don't identify or connect with the business's core values, they will not be able to connect with the business. Lastly, with brand messaging, individuals should be able to connect with businesses by being exposed to their brand messaging. If individuals are not exposed to the business's brand messaging, they will not be able to connect with the business. How do these findings impact organizations? When considering brands and branding, organizations should be conscious of what individuals say about their brand. Therefore, they must create the right messaging and experiences in order to influence what individuals say about their brand. By not establishing the right messaging or experiences for their organization will not be talked about. Organizations should have a personality in order to drive their brand identity. If organizations do not have a personality, they will not have a strong brand identity. When looking at core values, organizations should focus on creating core values that resonate with consumers versus focusing on what they sell. Focusing efforts on what they sell will deter consumers from connecting with their brand. Lastly, when it comes to brand messaging, organizations should have messaging that aligns with its personality and core values. If it does not incorporate those elements, the organization will not resonate with consumers. Lastly, how do these findings impact society? These answers incorporate both how organizations and individuals' responses to these elements impact society. Organizations should care about what society has to say and think about their brand. Individuals who are a part of society should voice their opinion about organizations' brands. Without a notable brand, society would not be able to connect with an organization. When considering brand identity, organizations should care about how their brand's personality resonates with society. Individuals who are a part of society can feel better connected to a brand that has a distinct personality. Without a brand identity, society would not be able to identify how an organization differs from others. Organizations should also establish core values that not only resonate, but relates to values that society holds. For example, Cousins Dozens had values that individuals in society hold, like family and godliness. Individuals who are a part of society should support businesses with distinct core values. Without core values, society cannot gain a deeper affinity for a brand. Lastly, brand messaging. Organizations should establish brand messaging that resonates with society's values. Individuals who are a part of society should have a clear exposure to organizations' brand messaging in order for society to connect with them. Without brand messaging, society will not gain the exposure to connect with them. These findings highlight the process of establishing and messaging a brand's identity. We learn about elements that go into brand identity, including branding, core values, and messaging. These implications touch on the concept of retrospective, from Sense Making in Organizations by Carl Weick. The subjects in the clip were working through an already existing business and only redefining what the business's brand was. Retrospective, in this context, suggests that people can know what they're doing only after they have done it. For Cousins Dozen, having already ran their business prior to meeting with the brand specialist, they had better leverage to create a strong brand identity. An ideological analysis is valuable because it identifies key themes from conversations and ideas that help formulate concepts like brand identity. Thank you.